And how's it going, folks? Welcome to Off the Dome Sports. My name is Sean Militello, and I am your host for today. I'm joined by special guest, Mr. Bob Rose, covers the Saints on the Saints News Network, and is also a co-host with Mr. Brandon Boylan. Is that how you say it?
Brendan Boylan, yes.
Boylan. And the Bayou Blitz podcast. I know it's been a while since you came on the show, Bob. How you been? How's it going?
Hey, Sean, I'm good. Thankful you asked me to join you, so I appreciate that a lot. And yeah, it has been a while. I mean, you and I chat a lot through through Messenger and on Twitter. But yeah, I know you put on a good show, and I'm anxious to be part of this episode.
Yes, sir. And I always appreciate your time coming on here. You are obviously one of my favorite guests.
Thank you.
I wouldn't bring you on if I didn't like you. So, but anyways, it's now week 1 of the NFL regular season. No more preseason, no more offseason, no more training camp. It's strictly football. Saints versus Falcons Sunday. Is it at 12 o'clock?
12 Central, yeah. So a high noon kickoff, a high noon shootout between two rivals.
In the Mercedes, what they call the Mercedes Stadium, or
Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I think is the official name. I just call it the Origami Bowl.
Origami. I mean, I think, and I don't want to give the Falcons any credit here, but they do have a nice stadium. But yeah, but I wanted to just go ahead and take a deep dive and go ahead and go straight into the matchup. So this is a Falcons team, kind of in a different, on a different part of the spectrum than we are at this moment, But, I would say as a Saints fan, you can't really sleep on the Falcons, especially when we are longtime rivals. And I have a feeling they could be better than the Panthers this year. A lot of people disagree. A lot of people think the Falcons are going to suck this year. But what do you think are going to be maybe some issues we might face against the Falcons that we might not see it coming?
First, Sean, I agree with a lot of people rather than you, and you and I usually agree. I think the Falcons are have one of the worst rosters in the NFL. But having said that, like you said, nobody's played a real game that counts yet, so you never know what's going to happen. A, and B, A bad Falcons team came into New Orleans and whipped up on the Saints in 2 of the last 3 years. So you can never discount anything that happens in this rivalry. If you're an older Saints fan like myself, then I don't need to tell you that some weird things have happened in this series. So I know the Saints are heavily favored. I am picking the Saints to win by a pretty wide margin. But I acknowledge that, to use a boxing term, Atlanta has a puncher's chance. First off, let's start with the quarterback. Marcus Mariota is not Matt Ryan. I mean, the Falcons severely downgraded here. But what Mariota brings to the table is a lot of excellent athleticism. And mobile quarterbacks have always given Dennis Allen defenses trouble. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Saints defenders handle Mariota if he breaks containment and gets outside the pocket, whether he chooses to run down the field or look down the field and make a play with his arm after escaping pressure. We saw in last year's matchup, the first of the two, when Atlanta came to New Orleans and pulled away an upset victory, the Saints defense all day long had problems with Cordero Patterson and Kyle Pitts. Now, I will acknowledge that the Saints did a wonderful job of rectifying those mismatches in the rematch, but it'll be very interesting to see how Dennis Allen and coordinators Chris Richard and Ryan Nielsen play Patterson and play Pitts, because they are going to be matchup nightmares for a lot of defenses this year. Falcons' offensive line is still awful. It's still putrid. So the Saints defensive line has to do their job, win the battles at the line of scrimmage, eliminate the Falcons running game very early and make them one-dimensional, and then proceed to crush that dimension by pressuring Mariota into mistakes.
Absolutely. And Marcus Mariota is a very familiar face to head coach Arthur Smith. He was his offense coordinator in Tennessee. I'm not quite. I don't quite remember how he used Mariota in Tennessee. It's been a while, but it's going to be interesting to see how he uses Mariota. And is this going to be something that we might struggle with? I don't know. Sometimes we do struggle against quarterbacks that can run the ball. Jalen Hurts is a good example of that. A guy who runs a lot of designed runs, and it's a big part of their passing game as well, because it sets up their passing game. A lot of bootlegs, running outside the pocket. And I also do agree, the number one goal is probably to shut down their running game. Cordell Patterson is going to be part of that. Their rookie, Tyler, I really can't pronounce their last name, but he's from out of BYU. You know how to say his last name?
Is it Algier? Is that the guy they got?
You're right. It is Algier. Tyler Algier from BYU. So he's more of a downhill runner. Very physical. He can knock you down pretty easily. He's like a bowling ball. But we are normally a very great run defense, but we have a hard trouble stopping, scrambling, running quarterbacks. So I'm interested to see that, and I'm interested to see the rookie Drake London if he plays. I seen that he is a little hurt. I don't know if he did not participate or he was probably limited in practice today. And obviously Kyle Pitts, he's going to be a matchup nightmare, like you said, for a lot of teams this year. So I'm interested to see there. And speaking of Kyle Pitts, who's going to be that guy that maybe covers him most of the game, because it's no more Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He's gone now, and that makes Marcus May even more important. And I'm wondering, is he even going to be able to travel to the game? Because, I saw where his lawyer had to ask to see if he can leave the state after his situation involving a arrest. So I don't know if you had any information on that. What's the status on Marcus May? Do you know?
The status on Marcus May is none at the moment. The charges you're referring to is he was arrested, ironically, the day after Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was traded. Tell me that couldn't be worse timing. But he was being charged with assault with a deadly weapon and a road rage incident. That's as far as the charges have gone. There have not been any preliminary hearings or anything like that yet. But as we know, Marcus May is also awaiting a hearing for a DUI that happened back in February of 2020, but has been the hearing of which has been postponed several times. Marcus May is going to be suspended for the DUI. There's no question about that. It's just a question of when. And it looks like, just like with Alvin Kamara, he might escape NFL suspension for the 2022 season. As far as the other charge, the more recent one, again, we have to, just like with the DUI, just like with Kamara's situation, we're going to have to wait to see how the legal proceedings play out. So far, there hasn't been egregious information against Marcus May to come out to cause the league or the New Orleans Saints to step in at this time. So until further notice, just out of courtesy to the courts and, the charges hanging over his head, anytime May does leave the state, his legal team will probably have to petition for permission. That's not going to be a major issue, at least at the current time. So Marcus May will be in the lineup on Sunday for sure. And yeah, you're right. He and probably Tyrann Mathieu are going to play big parts in the coverage of Kyle Pitts. Because what I noticed when the Falcons were in New Orleans last year, Pitts was getting a lot of his receptions, a lot of his big plays when he lined up outside the numbers, like even as an outside receiver. And there were even 2 or 3 times that I noticed either Demario Davis or Pete Werner were in coverage on Kyle Pitts. Now, I love Demario, but that's not a matchup that works in the Saints' favor. New Orleans is going to want to match up a defensive back. I see it being Tyrann Mathieu more often than not, but do not be surprised if they have a package that calls for Marshawn Lattimore to latch on to Kyle Pitts if Kyle goes way outside, lines up as an outside wide receiver. Because outside of Drake London and Bryan Edwards, who is a sneaky good offseason trade pickup for the Falcons, they don't have a lot of athleticism at the wide receiver position. Nothing like we're used to with Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage. They're all gone. Drake London, Bryan Edwards are going to take the lead role in that wide receiver core. But given the fact that the Saints have Bradley Roby and Paulson Adebo, who didn't practice today, so that's something worth monitoring. But they have a deep secondary core that I think is capable of taking on London and Edwards if Marshawn Lattimore lines up on Pitts, and that's only going to be in certain alignments.
And I totally forgot about Bryan Edwards. That is a sneaky addition to that team, and I look for him. I think he plays more of the slot position. Yeah, Bryan Edwards, big physical wide receiver out of South Carolina. He tore his ACL last year, I believe. Mm-hmm. He didn't play, so he's going to be fresh and hopefully, well, not helpful, but he's going to be healthy. So yeah, I do know. I've seen a stat where Kyle Pitts does line up on the outside a good bit. He racks up a lot of yards on the outside, and he's to me he's predominantly a wide receiver. And I know he's going to line up by the offensive line half the time as a tight end, but I think what it is when tight ends are not always able to line up anywhere. So he's just a freak of nature at that tight end position. And I'm also looking for the Saints offense to dominate, and I'm ready to see what Jameis Winston has in store this season. And like last year, when we played game 1, we had a show before that game too against the Packers. He looked great, and I'm looking to see him do great again. So what are your expectations for Jameis Winston game 1? Do you see us airing it out a little bit more? Maybe attack AJ Terrell, apparently who's better than Marshawn Lattimore?
Yeah, that's a joke, isn't it?
Right.
But AJ Terrell is a good cornerback, and they also picked up Casey Hayward this offseason. Hayward's a little bit up there in years, but he's an experienced defensive back, similar playing style to Bradley Roby. So that's a good pickup by Atlanta's defense. But I think Jameis Winston in that receiving core is going to have a big year. They added too many weapons. Mike Thomas is back. Looks like he's going to be a full go for Sunday. I'm really high on Chris Olave, have been for a long time. I remember previewing him, leading up to the draft with you on this show. So I'm high on Chris Olave, and how could you go wrong with Jarvis Landry? He's a poor man's Michael Thomas. He works at intermediate zones of a defense with expert precision, and I think those guys are going to be security blankets for Jameis Winston, who will still air it out down the field to guys like Deontay Hardy and Olave. I think Winston's going to have a big year. Having said that, I think the Saints are going to want to establish the run first against Atlanta, establish control of the line of scrimmage, hit them hard and early with Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. And if that strategy is effective, and on paper it should be, the Saints offensive line, though thin, has a significant matchup advantage over the Falcons front seven on paper. So if the Saints can take advantage of the line of scrimmage, that will open up play action shots for Jameis Winston, which will keep the Falcons from dropping an extra defender in the box, which means that run game still should be effective, but it still opens you up for the big plays because those linebackers and safeties will freeze on a good play action fake. And Jameis Winston is very adept at play action fakes. And when you have receivers, when you have weapons, all over the field, and Mike Thomas, Olave, Landry, Hardy, even Kamara out of the backfield, which I look to see a lot of on Sunday. That's going to spread the Falcons sideline to sideline, which is going to open up a lot of one-on-one opportunities for those receivers and running backs deeper down the field.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering if Pistol Pete Carmichael, that's what I call him now these days.
I like it.
Pistol Pete. So I'm wondering if he's going to add any special touches to this offense. We all know it's going to be this, similar offense we had for years. And you mentioned play action, which is what Jameis Winston does. And that's what really, play action equals big arm. You normally you run play action most of the time to throw bombs, and he's got the big arm to do it. You pound it on the ground, sets up play action, and you got your speedsters. So and I'm ready to see what Michael Thomas can do because I defended him the last two seasons. It's time for him to show up, and I know he hasn't been healthy, but you basically had 2 seasons, to get it under control and get right. I know he was limited today with his hamstring, and he says I don't know exactly what the question was asked to him, but I know that on Twitter I saw where he's looking to top his best year he had when he had Offense Player of the Year a couple years ago. So he's looking to have big expectations. And what's your opinion on that? And what do you think a 2022 season will look like for Michael Thomas?
I'll tell you, and I'm a big Mike Thomas fan. And the thing about Mike is this. He plays best with a chip on his shoulder when he feels he has something to prove. And Michael Thomas has a beef with the media right now, New Orleans media and national media. A lot of people are calling him injury prone. I've gotten into arguments with our own fans about this. He had one major injury. Granted, it's kept him out a year and a half, but one. Before that, he played 69 of his first 70 games. And look at I'm not going to bore you with the numbers, but I have them. Look at the production. The production in those 69 games were through the roof. I look for that kind of dominant performance from Michael Thomas again in 2022. I don't think he's going to put up the numbers similar to what he did in 2019. 149 catches, over 1,700 yards receiving. And the reason that I don't is because there's just so many other weapons in the Saints offense. And this team is still going to want to establish the run first rather than go back to the old Eric Coryell days of Dan Fouts or even early last decade with Drew Brees and company. They're going to want to establish the run first and take care of that balance. So because of that, the sheer number of opportunities for Michael Thomas won't be there, but I still look for a dominant guy that's going to have well over 100 catches and easily about between 12 and 1,400 yards. This guy is going to be a monster. He's going to shift into beast mode again. And defenses, you're going to have to deal with him because he's got a chip on his shoulder and a lot to prove.
Absolutely, and I think the biggest question on this offense, we talked talked well enough so far about this offense and how excited we are, and I'm not too sure who the starting right defense end for the Falcons is, but do you think James Hurst will hold his own on Sunday since it's not going to be Trevor Penning? And honestly, it probably would have been James Hurst anyway, in my opinion, to start the season. But Trevor Penning did look good up to the injury, and I'm glad that his surgery went well, and he's not going to miss much time that we thought. But how do you think James Hurst is going to perform? And because since I would say left tackle is probably the biggest question mark on the offense.
Yeah, it is. But I'll tell you what, Sean, James Hurst is a good football player. Yeah, he's a ton of starting experience, including with the Saints and including at left tackle last year in place of Teron Armstead. Yeah, is he an all-pro at that position? No. Frankly, I think Hurst is better suited for a guard spot. But it is what it is. Like you said, he was probably going to open the season as the starting left tackle anyway, even though Trevor Penning had been playing better and better and was giving him a run. I think James Hurst is going to do just fine at that spot. He might struggle with some elite pass rushers, during the course of the year, but Atlanta's not going to come at the Saints with any elite pass rushers. Grady Jarrett is their top defensive lineman by far, and he also has the most sacks of any returning Falcons player on defense. You want to know how many sacks he had last year?
Wow.
1. The Falcons had 18 sacks as a team this year. Now they did add, Lorenzo Carter along the edge. He was coming back from a pectoral injury, but Carter was a wonderful pass rusher for the Giants. So, he could be a problem, for both Ryan Ramczyk or James Hurst, depending on the side that Carter lines up on. And they also added Arnold Ibekite from Penn State, who's an underrated edge rusher too. So the Falcons are going to be improved in their pass rush, but I don't think it's enough to deal with the offensive line of the New Orleans Saints, who, if healthy, I think is still one of the better offensive lines, probably top 5, top 6 offensive lines in the league.
And, and we can't also forget the third phase of the game, special teams. And I think we have a top 5 special teams unit. And I don't know how, the Falcons got a good kicker and Youngway, Q, right? Q. But I'm not too sure about the rest of their special teams. But I just know a lot of times Blake Gilligan and we get Will Lutz back, and obviously we have one of the best punt cover teams in the NFL, and I would say our kickoff unit is pretty solid as well. Yep. And maybe that's one of the reasons why we, I see a lot of questions why we kept Zach Bond. It looks like, that's part of the reason why we kept him for special teams, I guess, but yeah. So I think on paper and what we've seen in the past, Saints should win this game in all 3 phases of this game, but you never know. It's the Atlanta Falcons, hard-fought rivals over the year. So I think the Saints will win this game, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a close game. I think the Saints will win 31-24, and then we'll head back. We have a home game week 2, huh?
Yes, sir, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And we all know we're 4-0 in the regular season against Tampa Bay, which I also think, I have a theory that he's probably going to retire in mid-season. I just have a feeling.
That's a nice hot take. You got to throw that out there.
But what would be your prediction for the outcome, Saints versus Falcons, week 1? And then maybe let's transition after that to maybe give your season prediction right after that.
I think the Saints could blow the Falcons away. Personally, I see the game actually being closer score-wise than what a lot of people anticipate through the first 2, maybe 3 quarters. But I see the Saints making some plays on offense and defense, maybe special teams too, later in the game and pulling away. I have the Saints coming away with a 31-13 win. I just think defensively they are too much for the Falcons, for an underhanded, shorthanded Falcons offense to handle. And the offense, the passing game is going to have some early season hiccups. There's just too much sheer talent on there against what I expect to be a poor Atlanta defense. I just think the Saints outclass them.
For sure, and I think that's very a logical take because it's true. And I still think the Falcons are underrated. They probably are not going to start off well. A lot of changes, especially name changes at quarterback. I do think Desmond Ridder is going to be a starter for them at some point, and that's why I think they kind of underrated because I really like Ridder, and he had a good preseason. And this is a young team, and obviously they're not going to be in the playoffs. I mean, I might, if they do, I'll eat my words. But it's going to be a good little matchup for the Saints for years to come. It's not going to be the same old Falcons of the past, 2-3 years. They missed the playoffs for like 3 years straight now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think – and Arthur Smith, I think he knows what he's doing, and I don't think a lot of people give him credit. So, we'll see what happens. I almost went with a 31-17 score, but I was like, you know what? Let's just play it on the safe side, 31-24. But as far as the season goes, I think the Saints are a 11-win team. I think they're 11-16 this year, and I do think we win the division. I don't think the Buccaneers. I think if Tom Brady plays the whole year, I do think they're a playoff team. But if Tom Brady's somehow retires, which I have a feeling he's going through something, I can see the Buccaneers missing the playoffs. And I don't think they are a playoff team without Tom Brady. So, like I said, Saints, division champs, 11-6. I'm thinking we might be a second seed in the NFC. What do you think about that?
I have them rated even higher. I have in my season preview article through the Saints News Network, which I think I published Friday or Saturday. I had the Saints going 12-5, winning the NFC South. I had Tampa Bay going 11-6. I respect that talent, on both sides of the ball, but they are an aging defense, with an aging quarterback and a depleted interior offensive line. And everybody knows that's the secret to beating Tom Brady. Look, we're going to have plenty of time to preview Saints versus Bucks next week, I know, but that's my quick take on the Bucks. I think this Saints team is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Yeah, I know they have concerns on both sides of the football. Starting out two new safeties. How's that communication going to be? Depth at linebacker, depth at offensive line, and whether Jameis can continue to take care of the ball like we saw last year. I like the potential answers to all those questions. And in my preview article, I not only had the Saints going 12-5, winning the NFC South, I had them winning the Super Bowl. I have them beating the LA Rams in the NFC Championship game. A little bit of personal stake in that. I picked that matchup for a reason. And I have them defeating Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals in Super Bowl 57.
Man, the state of Louisiana would absolutely. And we played the Bengals in week 5, and I plan on going to that game. Louisiana people, LSU fans, Saints fans will absolutely blow their minds if Saints Bengals Super Bowl, Joe Burrow, Jameis win. Oh my gosh! And you obviously Jarvis Landry, Tyrann Mathieu, and oh my God, the LSU Super Bowl. That's what you would call it, which would be crazy. I wish LSU was still good after Joe Burrow. I don't want to get into it. But, Bob, I appreciate you coming on today's show. It was a great show. I think we covered a good bit today in a good amount of time. So make sure you follow Bob on Twitter. I think it's BobbyR2613. I think that was your username. And then you can follow the Bayou Blitz podcast. I think it's at Bayou Blitz Pod, right? That's the username. Yep. So y'all go give them a follow on there. Check them out tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern time, right?
Yes. Yep.
Great show. You and Brendan do a great job. I try to tune in as much as possible.
Appreciate it.
Right. So hopefully we get the maybe preview next week, Buccaneers, and we'll get something going there. But thanks for coming on.
My pleasure, my friend. You take care. You have a good show yourself. You're part of the Bayou Blitz family. We're going to promote you. I know you promote us. It is always a pleasure being on with you. Thank you for putting out such a good product.
Yes, sir. All right. You have a great night.
You too. Be well.
All right. And that was Mr. Bob Rose. Phenomenal guest to have every single time. He's my Saints guy, man. I was always looking for a Saints LSU guy. He's my Saints guy. I'm still looking for LSU guys. So if you're watching out there, and Thomas, I know you're watching right now, probably. Thomas, I know you are one of my LSU guys, but and we're going to the game against Southern, but Saints, man, I would love it if they could go to the. I would love that prediction. I would love that. The Saints to the Super Bowl. Saints versus Bengals could be a good possibility. I think there is potential for the Saints to make the Super Bowl. I want to see how the season goes first, because for how much we criticize Sean Payton for leaving and for what he didn't do, and he got kind of stale, I guess, towards the end. He's been the guy in charge for over 16 years. So, I mean, Dennis Allen's going to be a great coach, I believe, and Pistol Pete is going to do a great job running this offense. But, the man in charge got us where we are now. So it's going to be really different. And I know these guys have been with Sean Payton, for over a decade. Dennis Allen has been with the Saints off and on over a decade. Pete Carmichael has been with the Saints since Sean Payton pretty much arrived. I mean, hell, Pistol Pete, a lot of people don't know this. He was the quarterback's coach when Drew Brees was with the Chargers. So, I mean, he's been with guys who've been a starting quarterback, a legendary quarterback in Drew Brees. So I expect him to do great with Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston's dark horse MVP. Make your bets now on FanDuel. So he's probably really cheap right now. So, I mean, go put in a bet because the weapons on this offense is off the chain. And I do think, we mentioned that we're going to see a lot of play action, right? I do think you're going to see a lot of passing to Alvin Kamara. I think he's going to have a big year in the passing game. We want to think, he's going to do more power running, but why not utilize him in the area he's the best in as a running back? I would say he's one of the best, if not the best, receiving back in the NFL. So, and it sounds like he's not going to be suspended this year, which is a huge plus for this team. So we'll see what happens. 11-6, Saints, playoffs, division champs. We'll see what happens. Who dat? Probably going to go live next week. Talk about the Saints next week. Maybe LSU. We'll see. We'll catch you next time.